Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 518, and today's date is November 14th, 2014, and the title of this episode is Russia and Egypt are proposing peace in Syria. Central bankers want war. Now, we've seen this before. We're starting to see that Russia is trying to quiet everything down in the Middle East because they understand that the central bankers, the United States government, are planning to go after Assad. This is going to be a major offensive, and Russia's saying if they do this, they know they're going to get involved. So they're working with Egypt right now to talk to Syria, to talk to the opposition, and try to create this peace negotiation, this peace deal. Now, of course, the United States government, central bankers, they really don't want peace. They've never talked about peace. They never said anything about peace. Actually, the Geneva II talks were all about Assad stepping down. There was nothing in there about peace whatsoever, and he's trying to do it once again. He tried the peace deal in Ukraine, and we can see that is completely breaking apart because the central bankers want one thing and one thing only, and that is war. Now, of course, as we know, the U.S. government central bankers, they're not going to go along with this peace deal, and if they do, it'll be for a short period of time, and they'll figure out another way to start the war in Syria. But I really don't think they're going to go for it, and this is why the Islamic State, which is controlled by the United States government, the Israel, UK, and other Arab nations, this is why they've created a new caliphate where they're adding more countries like Libya, like Yemen, like Egypt, because they're encompassing all those countries where they need to get into, or they want to get into, or where they're cozying up to Russia. So we can see this is why all of this is coming out right now. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand Greece has been doing terrible ever since the IMF has been pretty much piling on the debt. Greece has been in big trouble. Of course, the IMF is out there saying that they're recovering and everything is fine. Their unemployment dropped a little bit to 25.9%, but they're trying to feed us this line that their GDP is now surpassing Germany, Finland, the Netherlands, Austria, and they're trying to tell us that, yes, Greece, where their unemployment is 25.9%, their youth unemployment is at 60%, or very close to that. They're trying to say that, look, we know that you have very high unemployment. We know you cut many programs, and there's hardly any production coming out of Greece, but you have to believe us that they are surpassing all these countries in GDP. It makes no sense whatsoever. Now, of course, the IMF gave us many different forecasts, and it seems like they're starting to manipulate a lot of numbers. Back in 2007, when everything started, they said, oh, don't worry, we understand their GDP. It is at about 3.5% or so, and we expect it just to drop a little bit, maybe to 2.9%. So what happened back from 2000 to 2008? Well, their GDP went from 3 plus down to 0%. And in 2008, they said, okay, we had a little bit of a drop, but where we think it's going to go, we think it's going to be about 1% GDP. And of course, from 2008 to 2009, it dropped to negative 3%. And then they said, well, our new forecast is, since we're piling on the debt, they're imposing austerity on the people, unemployment's going up, we expect, yes, the GDP will rebound to 1%, and down in 2010, where did it go? Well, it went to negative 5%. And then, of course, as we went through this, and we're continually going through this, we see the GDP continually diving down. 2011, it's down to negative 7%, and as we continually go down, all of a sudden they're trying to tell us that GDP just did a lot better and sprung right back, just like the United States GDP, to the positive range, which is absolutely ridiculous and makes no sense whatsoever. Now, I was thinking about how Europe, Greece, Canada, and soon to be the United States, they're trying to get all those people who aren't working, who've given up, who don't want to work anymore, as they say. And of course, there are surveys out there saying that those people that have been looking for jobs, well, they've just threw in the towel and they said, listen, we put it out there, the resume, I'm not getting any answers on it whatsoever, and we've decided that we just can't find anything. We're just going to have to keep our part-time jobs. These people aren't giving up. the system is giving up on them. It's the opposite way, where you're sending it out, you're trying to find a job, and you're getting no response whatsoever. And this is what we're seeing in the industry right now. And of course, those people, they're saying that they have given up, but really it's the opposite way. But my point for all of this is looking at what they're trying to do. They're trying to get those people who are not working back into the workplace and working for free. And we know this is going to be very costly because it takes money to get to the job. You have to buy clothing, you have to buy gas, and they might use these numbers to show more people are working now, and we might see the unemployment numbers start to drop. It's a little bit of a manipulation tactic to make everyone believe that things are getting a lot better, especially in Europe, Canada, here in the United States, Greece, and all these different areas. And basically, we might actually see this happen. We're going to have to watch this very, very carefully. Now, out in the UK, it looks like new figures from the UK Ministry of Justice have revealed a record-high surge in the number of tenants evicted by their landlords. The report blames benefit cuts and a new dangerous trade called revenge eviction as the root cause. Seb Clare, Policy and Campaigns Manager of Generation Rent: "We are already in the middle of a housing crisis. More and more of the whole capital is just completely unaffordable to normal people. Benefits cuts themselves are sort of hitting the diversity of the capital, so we no longer see people of lower income who are able to live here, and there are some people who have to move out to camps outside of London," and this must be like these big 10 area cities. Claire went on to say, he even believes the eviction of tenants from their leased homes will deal a heavy blow to the British economy if this continues. And again, we're seeing this here in the United States. A lot of people who couldn't afford their homes back in 2008, who got the part-time jobs, just abandoned their homes. They started living in 10 cities. They tried to get back on their feet. They went and they got the part-time jobs. They never could find those full high-paying jobs, and we see it's getting harder and harder to find those jobs, and people are continually looking around, and each industry is different. I know this, and some places there it's okay, and other industries it isn't, but on the whole, we're seeing many major corporations laying off thousands upon thousands of people, and it's going to be very difficult for them to get a job. Now, we understand the gas prices are coming down, and of course, they're doing this for multiple reasons. It's not always just one. We understand they're trying to hit Russia really hard, and they're also trying to beef up the retail sales here in the United States. And as we know, as the gas prices come down, it gives more people cash in their pocket, and they're hoping during this holiday season they'll go out and spend this money. But it's not really working the way they want. And of course, retail sales rose about 0.6% against an expectation of about 0.4% rise, as falling gas prices provided some support for sales. But what's very interesting is that electronics, appliance stores, department stores, they are seeing negative sales. This is not helping whatsoever. 1.6 tumble in electronics and appliance store sales. We're seeing department store sales down by negative 0.3%. And again, they're going to try to bring the gas prices much lower. Of course, they're hitting Russia, trying to squeeze them right now. They're also trying to prop up the economy by lowering the gas prices, hoping that people have more cash. They'll go out to the stores and things will just be okie dokie, but we know it's not going to end up that way. We realize that most of these people that have this cash are going to keep it. They're going to spend a little bit because they realize gas can go right back up, and we're definitely going to see that happen as time goes on. Now, we know the real estate industry is completely crashing here in the United States. It is not getting better. This is why we see mortgage applications, refinance applications continually drop each week. This is why there's layoffs of thousands upon thousands of people in the mortgage departments. This started back in August of 2013, and it is continuing. There's a lot of mortgage companies that are closing, and now we see the Royal Bank of Scotland Securities unit will now exit its U.S. mortgage trading business after originally planning to shrink it by 2/3. Why? Because the American people are not buying houses. They're not taking out mortgages. They're not doing it. and they see and they understand they want to get out of this system completely, because what we're seeing right now is the same exact thing happening in 2007 going into 2008, where they're pushing the low down payments. They're bundling the securities once again. It's the exact same thing that happened once before, and we're seeing it right now, and the real estate industry is going to be collapsing. Now, I went around on Zillow, on Trulia Realtor.com. I wanted to take a look at neighborhoods and see how they were doing with house sales. Now, I looked at a development in New York, and I saw there was houses for sale. In one particular house I looked, it was a very nice house. It was selling for $900,000. Now, they've been trying to sell this house now for over 100 days. They have now brought that price of that home down to $699,000. So that's a $200,000 drop, and they still cannot find a buyer. Now, all the other houses in that development, they're not for sale, but their prices are much lower. Their worth of the house, I should say, is much lower than that house. That was like top of the line house. So we're going to see those houses come down in those of what they're worth, and this is going to really affect the market. So I looked in other areas, and I am seeing the same exact thing, where people have their homes on the market and they are lowering their prices dramatically. This started out back in 2006 going into 2007, and of course many parts of the country did not see this. I had a sister-in-law, I still have a sister-in-law, living in Florida. She was in real estate. She said, I do not know what you're talking about. We are booming down here. I lived in New York, and I said, listen, traffic is completely dried up. No one understands why this is happening, and people are starting to lower their prices. And all of a sudden, 6 to 8 months later, it hit the Florida market, and it was hit harder than it was in New York. And we can see right now it is starting once again, and we're seeing this right now. Now, in Italy, it looks like Pepe Grillo, the leader of the Italian Five-Star Movement, will start collecting signatures with the aim of getting a referendum in Italy on leaving the euro. Grillo says, we leave the euro and bring down the system of bankers of scum, he says. We are not at war with the Islamic State or Russia. We are at war with the European Central Bank that has stripped us of our sovereignty. And he is absolutely right. That is exactly right. He is at war with the central bankers. The central bankers are trying to maneuver everyone to look at Russia, at the Islamic State, because this is their agenda. Their system is collapsing, so they're starting other wars in other places, but he is absolutely right. The war is with the central bankers. The people here in the United States, in Canada, and in Europe, the war is with the central bankers, and it is time to remove them. Now, Putin understands that war is coming. Right now, there is an economic war, and as we know, we go from an economic war into a physical war, and he is preparing. And like I said in a couple of reports back, China, Russia, they're really accumulating gold. Well, it looks like Russia has bought about 55 tons of gold in the third quarter, and he is making sure that he has enough gold on hand. Putin's government is understanding that he needs this vast quantities of gold. He's tripled the amount of gold that he has. These reserves could provide the Kremlin with vital firepower to try and offset the sharp declines in the ruble. And this is exactly what China is trying to do. This is what Russia is trying to do. They're basically setting up an insurance policy against their currency. Now, the BIS is out there, the Bank of International Settlement. They are warning of a violent market crash. Low levels of market volatility persist despite conflicts and crises across the globe. Investors buying assets on the misguided presumption of a level of liquidity. Share prices continue to plummet as investor confidence decreases. A potentially violent stock market crash could be on the horizon as financial markets become dangerously stretched. A think tank has now warned. Now, we understand that the central bankers have been propping up the stock market. They've been using high-frequency trading, plunge protection, manipulation. They're doing everything they possibly can. And we understand now that, yes, the gold market has been manipulated. We see UBS was caught, and a lot of other banks are going to be showing up that, yes, they were manipulating the gold market, and we see gold is continually being pushed down because they want all eyes on the stock market. They want everyone to be convinced that, yes, the economy is recovering, and basically what they're doing is they're covering up this entire thing until they can get that special event to happen where all eyes are off of everything here in the United States and in Europe, and all eyes are now pointing towards Russia or the Islamic State or any other group or country, because they don't want anyone to realize that they were responsible for bringing down the entire system, because they do believe that they're going to start this all over again once the war has ended and they emerge from their underground bunkers. Now, the UK is out there, and it looks like they're going to pretty much censor some information on the internet. Now, we understand they did this with pornography, and now they're going to do it with extremist material online. The UK's big internet service provider, including BT, TalkTalk, Virgin Media, and Sky, have agreed to filter out terrorist and extremist material at the government's request in order to stop people seeing things that make them sympathetic towards terrorists. Now, the question is, what is extremists, and what do they believe needs to be taken down? What are the rules for this? If someone talks against the British government, is that extremist? Is that terrorism? So right now, in the case of extremist material, it appears that the reports will go to the Counter-Terrorism Internet Referral Unit, which is based in London's Metropolitan Police and has already been very active in identifying extremist materials and having it taken down. Now, we have to see how this goes forward, because already they have pornography now, extremists. Pretty soon it'll be anti-government. Bills will be passed, and this is exactly what they're also trying to do here in the United States. They're trying to control the internet. They want you to see what they want you to see and nothing else. They are trying to control everyone and funnel everyone into seeing only the things they approve. And we can see this is starting to spread now, and it is getting worse. Now, we understand out in West Africa, we have Ebola, we have terrorists. We understand the UK, the United States, they're bringing in military soldiers. Of course, they're garrison the countries because they want to control those governments in that area. They're putting them into debt to make sure they're on the hook to the central bankers. And we can see right now that there's a lot of natural resources in Africa. I mean, there's recent discoveries of oil, gas in Western Africa, but we really need to look at the eastern side of Africa, because there's going to be a lot of gas discovery in oil and natural gas, and we have to watch those countries in that area like Kenya, Angola, and other countries, because we might see the United States now maneuver to the east of Africa. And if they do this, we know that the only reason they're doing this is because they found a huge amount of oil and natural gas, and they want a piece of the action. And we have to watch this very closely, because there's a lot of exploration going on in that area. Now, Sweden did confirm, and it had evidence that a mini submarine entered its waters in October. The Swedish Defense Forces can confirm that a mini U-boat violated Swedish territory. This is a serious and unacceptable violation by foreign power, and basically they cannot prove or confirm who this vessel belongs to. Of course, the reports out there that it was Russia, and Russia was, bringing this sub in there. And of course, Russia came out and said, no, it's not us. I don't know who it is. Now, we can see what's happening here. NATO, the United States, many other countries, Australia, are all out there saying, Russia's flying here, Russia's doing this, Russia has a sub. And we can see that this is all about provoking and demonizing Russia at this point. Most of the flights that Russia has been taking across the Gulf, in the Arctic, in Eastern Europe, are all in international space. They did not cross over any of the borders. Of course, a lot of the countries don't report on this. They only say, yes, Russia was very close and we scrambled our fighters. But we have to remember, NATO, United States, and many other countries, they do the same exact thing. But guess what? It is not reported on because they are in international space. Now, we understand in Ukraine right now that the MH17 investigation is still going. We understand that Putin and other leaders are in the G20 in Australia. And of course, we have the leaders out there trying to put pressure on Putin to admit that he shot down MH17, and they're all out there grandstanding and doing everything else. And like a chess player, Putin released HD quality satellite photos of the Boeing airplane and the fighter jet firing a missile. It is clear as day, and from what I'm seeing, this satellite image does look real. I've been comparing it to Google Earth, looking at where the Donetsk airport is and everything, and I have it on the website. All you have to go to is the X22Report.com site. Look at Sentinel alerts today. You can even click on a larger photo of this. For those YouTube video people, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the screen. So if you look at the video, I'll change the picture of the opening picture to this new satellite image so you can see that. And you can see right now that he did this on purpose. He waited for all the leaders to be there. He waited for them to scream out and yell. He sat on this information, and now it is released, and we're going to have to see the reactions of all the private Western Central Bank countries, how they're scratching their heads going, what just happened here? Now, we understand that Russia is expecting to receive the Mistral ships. We see that France, the United States, NATO are saying do not make the delivery whatsoever. So Russia is going to make financial claims to France if the first two Mistral helicopter carriers are not delivered. They're going to want payment of some sort, like their money returned. Now, France is in real economic hardship right now, and of course they probably don't want to return that money. And we can see right now that they might actually get the ships after this satellite image is out there, and they're looking at it saying, okay, Russia had nothing to do with this, and they might just say, okay, let's complete this deal, but we'll have to watch to see what happens. Now, Putin is out there and he's talking about the sanctions that have been placed on Russia. He's saying that they're illegal and this is not going to help anyone. It's going to be a boomerang on the United States and Europe, and we're starting to see this. And we can see that he's trying to tell everyone this is not good for the economies of the world, placing these sanctions. But again, the central bankers really don't care. They're trying to provoke Russia into war because they realize the dollar is dying, and we can see that Putin right now is trying to tell everyone to back off. This is not going to help the situation. Now, of course, British Prime Minister David Cameron, he is out there saying that, you know what? The existing sanctions imposed by the West were having an impact on Russia's economy, and it looks like it's really hurting them. And because of what's happening in Ukraine, we might even enforce new sanctions, another round of sanctions on Russia. And we can see right now, they don't really care what's going on. They don't have peace in their minds. All they know is the system is collapsing. War needs to be started, and this is where we're headed. And we can see right now, Yatsenyuk in Ukraine is out there, and of course they're trying to gin up this war in Ukraine. They're going to start it. They're going to create a false flag event. But again, we have this satellite image out there about MH17, so we're going to have to watch that very closely. But he's out there, and he's saying that the top priority of Ukraine right now is to build an army strong enough to stop Russian military aggression. What? Putin came in, put together a ceasefire deal with Ukraine and the southeastern people. They went to Minsk. They have a ceasefire. They agreed. They shook hands. They did whatever they had to do. Of course, we knew that Ukraine was building up military assets. They were training their soldiers. We knew they were swapping them out for better soldiers. We understand the paid mercenaries now are intertwined into the armed forces, so nobody can say they have paid mercenaries. We understand they've been moving their military assets closer to the southeastern section, and we can see right now that they are gearing up for war. Period. That is it. Peace is not on their mind right now. The Ukrainian army is well prepared and able to defend the country's borders in case the developments contrary to the Minsk plan occur. And this is coming from Poroshenko. So they're all ready, and they're looking at it saying, listen, if the Minsk plan, the ceasefire is breached, we have our forces ready to go. So this tells you right here, they're planning on it. They know it will be breached because they're going to create it. Now, Moscow is out there, and they're saying that Very interesting with the OSCE. They're starting to side with Ukraine only. They're not looking out any other incidents that happen in Ukraine. Russia on Friday accused the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe Special Monitoring Mission of a pro-Ukraine bias. There is an impression that its efforts are aimed at supporting and assisting only one side in the conflict, the Kiev authorities. Its reports systematically give detailed accounts of movement of the military units of the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic, but it ignores the data on the military preparations and concentration of Ukrainian attack forces along the contact line. So they only report on the Donetsk and Lugansk with all their military movements, but they don't say why they're doing the movements. They're saying they're just moving and getting prepared for something, but they're not reporting how Ukraine has pulled all its military assets, their soldiers, up to the border of the southeastern region. They're leaving that out completely. They're not reporting on any of that, and we can see right now, because this is getting ready for war, and we can see they're definitely preparing for something. And the OSCE right now might have gotten their instructions from Europe, the United States, to say, listen, we only want one-sided right now. Don't listen to Russia. They're the ones who are causing the problem, and we can see right now they are definitely building up for this. Now we can see the provoking of Russia is continuing. 8 northern European nations have agreed to step up military training and data sharing to oppose an alleged invasion of airspace by Russia. Russia does send military patrols toward other nations, but the aircraft are instructed to stay in international space. NATO usually scrambles its fighters to shadow the Russian planes, but again, Russia never crosses the borders, and guess what? The countries never report this. And of course they make a big deal, they put it in the corporate media, and they're not really telling you the whole truth, because the United States does this, NATO does this, but the corporate media doesn't run out there and say, oh, look, the NATO planes, the U.S. planes are right near the border, but they're in international space. They don't even report on that. They're doing this on purpose right now. Now it looks like Russia and Egypt are preparing for a conference between the Syrian regime and the opposition in the hope of bringing them together in a transitional government that fights terrorism. The agenda of the conference to be held between the two sides includes establishing a transitional Syrian government with extensive powers while maintaining Syrian President Assad's authority over the army and security institutions. If such a proposal comes to fruition, its merits must be seriously debated on the world stage, where Obama would very likely do his best to pretty much sabotage these peace plans. This is because Obama's rebels on the ground in Syria, loosely organized under the Free Syrian Army banner, are now powerless, and a Russia-led peace process would reveal this fact and apply it to a peace treaty, leaving little influence for the Obama administration in the new government. This is a peace deal Obama would rather kill, and definitely, yes, they do not want this to happen, because what's happening right now with the Free Syrian Army, those opposition soldiers are now being integrated into the Islamic State. Now we see the Islamic State with Al-Qaeda, we see the Islamic State now with Khorasan, they're all combining, and now we see the Free Syrian Army integrating into the Islamic State, because this is the proxy army for the United States, and they're able to maneuver wherever they need. They don't answer to a government, they are terrorists, and the UN has no control over them whatsoever. Now, of course, the UN is out there and they're saying, well, the Islamic State, the terrorist group, they've committed war crimes. Well, of course they are. They're a terrorist group. What do you think? They're going to be nice to people as they go through the country? No. They're a proxy army for the United States, Israel, UK, and other Arab nations. Of course they're going to commit atrocities. Look what the Free Syrian Army did when they were fighting Syria. They're ripping out hearts of soldiers that they killed. It's the same people. They're paid mercenaries. This is why all of this is happening. It's amazing how all of these leaders just keep their eyes closed and they pretend that the Islamic State is a terrorist organization and they're doing this to create this caliphate. And it's unbelievable, because what they're really doing right now is maneuvering into these countries so the United States can bring their military to reclaim the countries, replace that government that they took over with the puppet government. They need to get into Syria, replace that government, move into Iran. This is what they're doing. And if you look at where the Islamic State is going to go, it's every place the United States needs to get back into or wants to go. That is it. And of course they throw in Rome every here and there to make it look really good. But really, we know what the plan is. Now it looks like the DHS head right now of the Council on Foreign Relations, the chairman of the House Committee on Homeland Security, Representative Mike McCall, said he loses sleep at night because he realizes that the power grid, the water distribution, the entire infrastructure basically is completely open now for the Islamic State to attack. He's saying that they have the ease of access, they have the ability to use that black energy malware to get in there and bring down our infrastructure. And he's very worried, and we see a lot of this come out right now. We understand they're building the propaganda to convince everyone that yes, since this malware has been put into place, that Russia, China, even the Islamic State or Syria could come along and bring down the entire system. And as we know, the central bankers have had this set up. It is a false flag event. And we might see this all accelerate now, because what has happened, and like I mentioned before, these satellite images, we're going to have to see how the United States government, the central bankers, react to all of this, because they might accelerate their plan, because things are completely falling apart for them right now. Putin, Egypt, they're coming together to form this peace deal. The United States government, central bankers, they do not want this. And they might do something right now and accelerate what they're trying to do. And what I mean by this is they will push a false flag event. And this is why we see a lot of this propaganda really accelerating. We see it continually coming out. They keep mentioning bringing down the power grid, bringing down the water supply, bringing down the financial institutions. We already had a hacker saying that Chicago might be nuked in 2015. These dates might not be that far out anymore. They might bring them in because they understand that what they need to do, the window is closing at this point. The collapse is coming, and they're going to have to push this much harder than they were. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.